At number 4, the 1995-96 Seattle SuperSonics. In the 90s, this franchise slowly built this team into one of the most exciting, well-rounded teams in the NBA. This 96 team was one of the best teams in franchise history ever put together, and considered by many to be among the best non-championship teams of all time. This team was Lob City before Lob City. This squad was built to win the championship, but the 96 team wasn't the only chance they had to win the ultimate prize. The franchise played in Seattle from 1967 to 2008, home to NBA greats like Gus Williams, Dennis Johnson, Jack Sigma, Gary Payton, Shawn Kemp, Ray Allen, and even a rookie by the name of Kevin Durant. After their championship run in '79, they started to hit a decline throughout the '80s, but they did make a surprise run in the Western Conference Finals in '87 after finishing the regular season 39-43. The beginnings of one of the most memorable teams in the '90s started with back-to-back selections in the draft in 1989 and 1990. With the 17th pick in the '89 draft, the Sonics selected a player who didn't even play a single minute of college basketball, high-flying forward Shawn Kemp. Kemp had the talent to sign with any school in the nation, and he signed his letter of intent with the Kentucky Wildcats. He could have been a legend at Kentucky, but he was dismissed from the program after he allegedly stole 2 gold chains and sold them, which belonged to one of his teammates. And just like that, his Kentucky career ended before it even got started. But that didn't stop the Sonics from recognizing a potential star in the making. Kemp only played 14 minutes a game in his rookie year, as he came off the bench for every game except one. It didn't take long for the NBA to realize with his skill set and athleticism, Kemp was the future of NBA basketball.
Ricky goes back to get it, fires it cross court, Kemp's got it right up into the alley, power slam, tomahawk Sam, yeah baby, into Lister's face, and the Sonics take the lead, 48-47.
Kemp going to the hoop, wow!
The Sonics general manager at the time said that Kemp was a mix between Charles Barkley and Dominique Wilkins. But it was his game against Magic Johnson and the Lakers that really showed he was a rising star. Playing against a front line of AC Green, Vlade Divac, and Michael Thompson didn't faze Kemp one bit. He played with fearlessness and confidence like he had been doing it for a long time. The Rain Man made a huge impression in front of Lakers fans at the Great Western Forum. He finished with 19.6 rebounds and 2 steals. The Sonics finished the regular season 41-41 and just barely missed the playoffs. The Sonics ended up being part of one of the biggest surprises in NBA draft lottery history. They had only a 3% chance of getting the second pick in the draft, and the ping pong balls bounced their way, and that led to them drafting one of the best all-around guards in NBA history. The Glove, Gary Payton. The Sonics had 2 cornerstones that would help give them multiple opportunities to win the championship. It took Gary Payton some time to adjust to the NBA game, as he only averaged around 8 points in his first few seasons. These days, fans would have wasted no time calling him a bust. But in the 90s, players were allowed to make a lot of mistakes without getting criticized on a daily basis. It wasn't until the Sonics hired George Karl as the head coach that Gary Payton really showed how good of a player he was. Why they call him the Glove? It was because of his in-your-face defense. It was during the 1993 Western Conference Finals between the Suns and the Sonics when word got out that Payton's cousin said he was holding Kevin Johnson like a baseball in a glove. And that's where the nickname came from. Payton played with a competitive spirit that influenced his teammates and powered every facet of the game. He had that dog in him. Payton never shied away from contact on defense or offense. He used his 6'4" frame and instincts to bully ball handlers, and he constantly disrupted half-court offenses. On offense, he could impose his will on smaller guards, and he scored on a regular basis on the low block. His superior footwork allowed him to attack the defenses from many angles, and he was never shy about letting you know what he was going to do. Payton was going to trash talk you from the time you got off the bus until you walked off the court. He could talk it and he could walk it. The Glove and the Rain Man brought a level of excitement to the Sonics franchise that had never been seen before. It seemed like if you missed the game, you were going to miss out on seeing something that had never been done before. Not only did Payton start to play like an all-star when George Karl became head coach, but the team started winning games. When the Sonics fired K.C. Jones during the 91-92 season, Karl took over and steered the franchise in the right direction. Karl might go down as the greatest coach in team history. The Sonics were already a good offensive team, but when he became the head coach, he made his mark on the other end. In the previous 2 seasons, the Sonics ranked 21st and 17th on defense. In his first full season with the team, Their defensive rating will rank second and will always rank in the top 10 during Carl's time with the team. Some NBA fans only know him as the current head coach of the Indiana Pacers, but back in the 90s, he was a key piece on this team, Nate McMillan. He played most of his career with the Sonics, backing up Hall of Fame point guard Gary Payton. The Sonics took McMillan in the second round in the 1986 draft. He is known as Mr. Sonic because of his 19 years with the franchise, 12 years as a player and 7 years as a coach. Gary Payton wasn't the only player on the team who was a hard-nosed defender. Add McMillan to that list. He was tough, and he played with such high intensity that you could say he was somewhat reckless. The way McMillan played made him vulnerable to injury. McMillan is one of the most underrated backup point guards in NBA history. He is the only bench player to lead the league in steals. His steal rate that season in '94 is the highest in NBA history, and it's not even close. He is the only backup point guard to make the all-defensive team, and he did it twice. He and Rajon Rondo are the only players in NBA history to have 25 assists in one game with single-digit points. In 1993, the Sonics acquired the sweet-shooting big man Sam Perkins from the Lakers, and later that year they traded for versatile forward Detlef Schrempf from the Indiana Pacers. Schrempf won Sixth Man of the Year twice with the Pacers, in '91 and '92, but he was too good to be a bench player. When he came to the Sonics, he was an instant starter. Detlef Schrempf was a 6'10 forward who can score in multiple ways, mid-range, posting up, and definitely from three-point range. During the 94-95 season, he ranked second in the league in three-point percentage, shooting 51%. This was a well-balanced team that had everything you needed to be a championship team. In George Karl's second full season with the team, he added two notable assistant coaches to the staff, Dwayne Casey and Terry Stotts, two current head coaches in the NBA right now. 55 games were the fewest games they won during George Karl's time as head coach with the franchise. From '93 to '98, the Sonics finished top 10 in offensive and defensive efficiency. Their defense was an aggressive system of traps, ball pressure, and double teams. It was unique for its time because it required all 5 players working on a string to close space and cut out obvious passing options. It functioned like a zone defense, even though the NBA didn't allow zone defenses at the time. The Sonics led the league in illegal defensive calls, and it wasn't even close. They eventually adjusted their system by timing their double teams, so the other 3 players were close enough to the 4 remaining offensive players. Also, from '93 to '98, only the Chicago Bulls had a higher regular season winning percentage than the Sonics. In '93, they won 55 games and made it all the way to the Western Conference Finals, but lost in Game 7 to the Phoenix Suns. In '94, they had the best record in the NBA. They finished second in offensive efficiency and third in defensive efficiency. They faced off against the Denver Nuggets in the first round and went up 2-0 in the series. But the Nuggets managed to win 3 straight games and became the first 8-seeded team in NBA history to defeat a number 1 seeded team. Some say this was the Sonics' best chance to win a championship, which was the year Michael Jordan missed a full season because he wanted to play baseball. In '95, they won 57 games and lost in the first round again against the Los Angeles Lakers. At this point, the Sonics were a great regular season team, but couldn't put it together in the playoffs. They choked multiple times up to this point. Kendall Gill and George Karl had a toxic relationship. Gill made no secret about his feud with the head coach over his lack of playing time. When the Sonics announced they were going to keep George Karl, Gill told reporters he wanted out. In the summer of '95, they traded Gill to the Charlotte Hornets for Hershey Hawkins and David Wingate. The Sonics got rid of a problem and acquired one of the best outside shooters in the game in Hershey Hawkins. Hawkins was a perfect fit for the Sonics' trapping, switching defense, and ranked 7th in the league in steals in his first season with the team, which was the '96 team. They also traded for Frank Burkowski, who was also a good outside shooter to go along with his toughness. Mid-range was very important in the '90s. Most championship teams at the time always shot a good percentage from mid-range. The '96 Sonics ranked first in the league in 2-point field goal percentage, shooting around 52% as a team. Even though I said the '94 team had the best opportunity to win a championship, the '96 team was the most complete team in this era, maybe even in franchise history. And you have to remember, Michael Jordan didn't play in '94, which was one of the main reasons why the Sonics had their best chance to win that year during their run. The '96 team had great outside shooting, great defense, great ball movement, and played at a fast pace. They never missed an opportunity to score in transition. This team had the right pieces on the court, and solve their chemistry issues off the court. It was the perfect team built around two franchise players. They not only made some changes to the roster, but they also made other changes. The Sonics returned to a remodeled Key Arena, and they also unveiled a new logo for the first time in 20 years and introduced new uniforms. They had better chemistry, better supporting cast, and a better look. In '96, they ranked 9th in offensive rating and 2nd in defensive rating. Payton again was the catalyst that led the team to being one of the best in the NBA. This was a big year for GP. There had never been a guard to win Defensive Player of the Year, but during this season, Payton became the first one and is currently the only one in history. Shawn Kemp was an all-star again that year, and their left shrimp played like a legit starter and could always be relied on. They were 64-18, and the only team that had a better record was the Chicago Bulls, who won 72 games. They were once again the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They were obviously the best team in the conference, but they had to prove it in the playoffs. They did get a little scared in the first round when the Sacramento Kings won Game 2, and the series went to Sacramento for Games 3 and 4. But the Sonics were able to finish them off in 5 games. In the second round, they faced off against the 2-time defending champions, the Houston Rockets, and the Sonics proved to be the more superior team by sweeping them out of the playoffs. Their next matchup was against the Utah Jazz. They both battled all the way to Game 7. Gary Payton brought his A game, and so did Shawn Kemp. Kemp showed how great of a player he was as he matched up against the great Karl Malone, and he scored 26 points and grabbed 14 rebounds to lead the Sonics to a close victory in Game 7.
Court shoots the shot from the right side, no good for 3. Askew the rebound, the Sonics win. And Gary Payton is standing on his...
Now it was the Bulls versus the Sonics, the matchup that was supposed to happen. They were clearly the best two teams in the regular season. The Sonics had some reason to be optimistic because they split their regular season matchup against the Bulls, and they had only lost 3 games at Key Arena during the regular season. The Sonics were dealing with some injuries to key players. McMillan had a back injury that forced him to miss the first 2 games of the finals before returning for Game 3. He actually had to take a cortisone injection to relieve the pain in his back in Game 4. Gary Payton was dealing with a calf injury, and George Karl didn't want him to guard Jordan early in the series because he thought the team needed his offense a little more. But that move backfired on George Karl as Jordan dropped 28 points in Game 1, 29 points in Game 2, and 36 in Game 3 as the Bulls took a commanding 3-0 lead. At that point, Karl changed his mind and allowed Payton to primarily guard Jordan for the rest of the series. I know Michael Jordan on The Last Dance laughed at the idea that Payton gave him problems in the finals. Jordan would never admit to it, but Payton clearly did a great job defending him. I wouldn't say he locked him down, but Jordan was less efficient from the field when GP started guarding him. In the Bulls' first 15 games of the playoffs, Jordan averaged 32 points on nearly 48% shooting. In the 3 games after that, GP held him to 24 points per game on 36% from the field. Payton made Jordan work to even receive the ball in the post, and occasionally the Sonics ran a double team at him that forced turnovers. Payton proved why he was the Defensive Player of the Year, and that change sparked the Sonics to win the next 2 games. Game 6 was the most watched NBA game ever on television. It wasn't the defense that was a problem for the Sonics in Game 6, it was the offense. Seattle went cold in Game 6, scoring only 75 points on 5 for 24 from beyond the arc. The Bulls only needed 87 points to win the championship. Who knows, maybe if Karl allowed Payton to guard Jordan from the start, maybe things would have turned out differently. Or maybe the result would have remained the same. Shawn Kemp held out the next season after the Sonics signed backup center Jim McIlvain to a $33 million deal in '97. And a week before training camp, the Sonics traded Kemp to the Cavaliers in a 3-team trade where they received big man Vin Baker. The Sonics will end up firing George Karl in '98 after the Sonics won 61 games in the regular season but lost to the Lakers in the second round. Eventually, the Sonics traded Gary Payton to the Milwaukee Bucks, who was the last remaining member of the 1996 Finals team. Clay Bennett bought the team in 2006 and had every intention to move the team to Oklahoma City, breaking the hearts of Sonics fans, and has still left a big hole in the city ever since.